Welcome everyone. My name is Jeff Sloss. I'm the Controls Marketing Manager at Zoeller Company. Thanks again for joining us for the Intro to Z-Control Cloud Technology webinar. Before we get started, I want to cover just a couple details. Please make note of the email address written at the bottom of your screen, webinars@zoeller.com. If afterwards you have some questions, just send us a note and we'll be sure to get back to you. We're going to allow for a window of time at the conclusion, and we'll open up the chat and you can ask questions during a question and answer period. All right, so now we've covered a few basics. I want to just a quick note about myself. Again, my name is Jeff Sloss. Before coming to Zoeller, I had 20 years in the pump industry in the Chicago area, mainly in the service industry, and we did product development as well. Came to Zoeller about 7 years ago. And I'm the controls product manager. So what we do is a lot of the product development on controls and electronics that hopefully you've been seeing and selling over the past several years. So today what we're going to do is we're going to cover what is the Z-Control Cloud, why do I need the Z-Control Cloud, why is it superior to competitors' clouds, what do we mean by Z-Control enabled, and what products are we referring to when we're talking about Z-Control. So this is the intro webinar, and about 1 month from now, we're going to have a second webinar that's a little bit more advanced. We're going to go into more detail. We're going to talk about how to connect a device to the cloud, how to create an account, how to add devices to your account, and we'll probably run through some troubleshooting and some device-specific information. So you can register for that now, actually, at the training tab on the Zoeller website. So before we get started, let's take a quick poll. We're going to put a poll up there just asking you how you would rate your current familiarity with the Z-Control Cloud. There's a few answers to pick from. We're going to do this just for a few seconds. Answer that question. We just want to gauge what the familiarity level is of our audience today. All right, thank you very much for answering that question. Now, what we see and what we've expected is that, let's see, about 75% of you say you are not at all familiar or vaguely familiar. And that's about what we would have expected. So thank you again for sharing that. And we hope that you'll be able to answer that question a little differently by the time we're done here. So what is the Z-Control Cloud? Well, it simply is the name that we've given to our infrastructure. It's just that whole infrastructure that enables the pumps and alarms and controls that we make to connect to the cloud and then be able to talk to you. So that starts with everything from firmware on that we write, the code that we write for our products, the microchips, the Wi-Fi chips, so the hardware, using a router that's local to the building, and then connecting up to databases in the cloud. There's applications running, and then at the end you see an interface, what's called a user interface, which would be either a web page or a mobile app. So all of that is kind of what we refer to as our infrastructure. The cloud itself is more or less what you see online and what's happening in the background behind what you see. Included in that cloud is alert notifications, whether that's text or email or push notification. It's a two-way communication, meaning you can take control of the product in certain respects. You can push a button to test a pump or silence an alarm, that kind of thing. That enables you to do remote monitoring, which then opens up opportunities for property management, remote troubleshooting, and ultimately, the bottom line, protecting the property. So why do I need Z-Control? The testing and diagnostics that our products are able to do because of those chips and microprocessors and connectivity are far and away much more advanced than anything that we've sold or anybody's sold in the past. So we're leveraging that technology to prevent property damage is really the bottom line. You're going to get early knowledge and notification of high water alarms, component faults, disconnections of maybe a switch. All those things are being monitored and communicated. You're also going to be able to set yourself up to receive reminders for maintenance. That's very important when, it's hard enough for us to remember to change our furnace filter, let alone maybe once in a while go down and do some testing on our pump equipment. So it's great for reminders. And those reminders and alerts and alarms, they can all be received. You can set it up to receive via text message, email, or app push. App push simply means, if you're not familiar with that term, that just means if you have the mobile application, the Z-Control mobile app installed on your phone, or any app installed on your phone, the little notification you get from the app, that's called an app push. So any of those are ways to be alerted about a device connected to Z-Control. Again, you have remote access and control of your devices and real-time troubleshooting. All of this adds up to peace of mind. And I will point out that when you're talking about Nest or lighting, or at my house, I've got some controls for swimming pool or audio equipment, any of those kinds of things. If you think about a lot of those, they're really nice to have. They're convenient. But unlike pumps and pump equipment, they're not necessarily crucial. So what we like to say is that, this crucial equipment that's now connected, this cloud isn't just for convenience, it's confidence. You have confidence that that equipment, sometimes that ignored equipment that's in the corner of a basement that frankly a lot of people don't necessarily know how it works or what it's even supposed to do. If it's connected to the cloud and performing testing, and there's notifications set up in case of any sort of problem, that gives the user, and frankly the contractor as well, confidence about those products, that they're working and ready to spring into action when needed. So why is Z-Control Cloud superior to other platforms? First of all, we made and own 100% of Z-Control Cloud. We did not subcontract any of it. There's nothing proprietary about the cloud that we don't own. That may not sound like a big deal, but it really is. We have the ability to customize the cloud for any future product. We could even customize it for custom applications when necessary. There's near zero cost. Zoeller has built the entire platform and we do not charge for the use of it. So whether that's contractors or the homeowners, any end user, there is no cost to using Z-Control. We do not put any limitations on the number of notifications or the number of recipients receiving notifications. So whether that's a dozen email addresses or text addresses, we do not have any limitations on that. You can put as many devices in your account as you'd like and create as many locations to help organize your account. We are going to take a look at an account so you see what that means. But the important thing is we're not limiting. Pretty much every other cloud site that I've seen has some pretty severe limitations. Zoeller's Z-Control Cloud is definitely the leading internet-based service in the industry. When you do a comparison, just one thing alone would be two-way communication. Sure, you can set up devices that have alert notification, and with today's technology, that's not easy, but it's relatively easy. But it's a whole different level of technology when you make those devices in the home two-way, the ability to have a two-way conversation with them and send them commands and log into them and that type of thing. Zoeller's connected products are leading the industry in the smart testing and smart diagnostics. We've got a really fantastic platform of the chipsets and Wi-Fi that we use that is being employed in many products. We're able to accomplish the diagnostics on, let's say, for example, a battery backup pump like the Aquanaut Fit is able to do testing, make sure switches are connected, make sure a charger is working and the battery is strong. Those are all things that we couldn't do before we used these types of technologies. Account holders are able to share their equipment, the devices that are in their account. They can share them individually with other accounts. So if I have an Aquanaut Fit protecting my basement, I can share that device with my contractor, for example, and the contractor can have that device in his account. I'm going to show you that when we get to the website. There's many future products coming, and with those future products come additional capabilities. So we do have quite a few tools that will be rolled out as time goes on. So the cloud is only going to get better. It's very user-friendly. It's very flexible. So the last thing I'd say is that I haven't seen another cloud in the industry that isn't somehow linked to and relied on vendors. So, all right, the next slide. What do we mean by Z-Control enabled? A product that was designed to connect to Z-Control Cloud and utilize the two-way communication and notification features. Z-Control enabled products are built with integrated microprocessors and therefore have powerful abilities built into their construction, allowing us to offer superior products. So by enabled, we more or less mean that they were designed with the Z-Control kind of baked in to the design. From the start, we know that people are going to connect them, so remote users are able to take control of that device as though they're standing in front of it. We're going to talk about a different way of utilizing Z-Control, where you can take an old product that wasn't Z-Control enabled and monitor it to a certain degree. So that's the difference. Whether you're just using a Z-Control product or the cloud to monitor an older device, or whether the device you're connecting to the cloud is actually Z-Control enabled. That's the difference I'm trying to point out. Z-Control enabled products either have a built-in Wi-Fi or they have a jack to connect to a gateway. No product has both. The gateway itself has both, but none of the other devices that we make have both connection options. They're either going to be a built-in Wi-Fi, which is typically a residential product, or there's going to be a jack to connect to a gateway. And typically that's going to be a product that's maybe more commercial in nature, or it's more of an outdoor type product. The screenshot on the right side of this page simply shows the alarms that are generated by an Aquanaut Fit. You can kind of see the type of technology and abilities that the products have. If that were an APAC or a control panel, that list would look a lot different, of course. But that's just a screenshot from the website. So again, the products that are Z-Control enabled either have built-in Wi-Fi or they require a gateway. So let's look at that a little closer. Built-in Wi-Fi. You've got an APAC indoor alarm and an Aquanaut Fit. Those are the two products right now with built-in Wi-Fi. There's many smart pumps and controls and other in-home products that are coming. So when you have those two products, the APAC and the Fit, you'll see that word Z-Control with the little blue logo, and it's got a white Z inside the blue square. When that LED is on, that means that that product has been properly connected to the cloud. Now, a product that requires a gateway is going to look a little bit different. Some of those examples are Aquanaut Active, which is our premium battery backup system. Our sister company, Flint & Walling, sells a VFD for a water pressure booster system. And Zoeller also has the LPS RWD control panel. There's a lot more things coming, but here's what those look like. On the Z-Control gateway, on the left side, that's your data jack. And you'd plug a Cat5 cable into that, and at the other end, you would plug that into the jack on the device. So the bottom left picture there is an Aquanaut Active. And on the right-hand side is a circuit board from a control panel. And you'll see at the bottom edge of that control panel's circuit board, right in the middle there's a jack, and that would be the other end of that Cat5. If you've got a Z-Control enabled product that is connecting to the gateway with a cable like that, we've built those products so that they also power the gateway. You'll notice on the left side of the gateway, on the upper left picture there's also a little power jack. It does have a power jack and there is a power adapter available, but you won't need that if it's being connected with the Cat5 cable to an enabled product. All right, so this is zcontrolcloud.com. A lot of the information that we're covering today is accessible on this page. This is meant to be a kind of a little tutorial page where you can either go or send clients to this page to learn more about Z-Control. There's a FAQ section. There's a link to the various products that have Z Control built in. So just a good general information type of page. I'm going to go to a different tab here, and you'll see this is my account. And the things that I'm going to point out are the basic building blocks or structure of the site. And then we're going to go into much more of this detail in our second webinar a month from now. Where it says Center for Excellence, that's a location name. And I can change the location name, and I can add devices to that location with this edit button. So you can see there's 4 devices in our Center for Excellence next door to our main office building here. That's a training building. Up here in the upper right corner, you've got what we call the Zoeller meatball, and then next to it is called, this is called a hamburger. When you click on the hamburger there, you get a menu. You can see a profile, how you've set your account up. But the most important link here is probably this Manage Contacts. This is where you would add email addresses and phone numbers to receive email and text notifications. So you'll notice my email address is there, and I verified that because when I added it, I got a message from the cloud that said, hey, verify you own this email, which I did. So it says that it's verified up here. Notice this fake mobile number that's in here is not verified. But if that was a real number, I would have gotten a text with a link to verify, and then that would also say verified here. So that's where you add people. Now, we touched on briefly earlier what I called device sharing. And people ask, well, couldn't I just add my plumber or my brother-in-law or whoever it is to this list? And yet the answer is yes, you can. You can add whoever you want to this list, whether it's a phone number or an email address. The problem with that is that person, whoever it is you add there, they're going to get notifications according to how you've set your account up. And they may not want that. You may not want that. Also, if you're relying on that person to check in and on your account because you leave town or whatever the case may be, you'd have to give that person your login credentials for your account. So instead, what's better is you just tell them to create their own account on Z Control Cloud, and then you're going to send them a sharing invitation for the device you want to share with them. So I'll close this menu and show you where that sharing invitation is. And we're going to make it a little bit more obvious, but this is where it is now. These are the tabs here. I'm skipping ahead a little bit, but I'm going to go to Device Settings. And there's a little star here with Manage Sharing. I'm going to share my device, and I'm going to put the email address of the person that I want to share that particular device with right there. And they'll get that invitation via email and be able to set it up according to their preferences in their account. That's a much better way of having multiple people be able to have access to the same device. All right, so if I go back here, if I open Aquanaut Fit, just as an example, Aquanaut Fit again is our battery backup sump pump system that we came out with in, I believe, February. And it's our second battery backup system that is connected to Z Control. The first was the Aquanaut Active, but the Aquanaut Fit is about half the list price of the Aquanaut Active. And what you can see on the Aquanaut Fit here is these 4 tabs along here. You've got status, alert history, device settings, and alert settings. Status is going to tell you these main 4 components all look good. They've got big green check marks. And then over on the right side, you're going to have some specific status information about this particular device. You can see how many times a switch has been triggered, voltage information. And then I'll point out in the blue bar here, right at the top, you'll notice last updated today at 11:28 and 36 seconds. That's going to update every 30 seconds. And why is it doing that? Because every 30 seconds, all those devices out in the field that are connected to Z Control are sending a heartbeat into the cloud. And they're saying, Hey, Z Control, here's my current status. Go ahead and log that to the database in the cloud. So we'll see that change every 30 seconds and update. The next tab here, actually you can see it just updated. So now it's 11:29 and 06. So if any of this data changed, it would update on the screen. The next tab here, by the way, if I didn't say it, these 4 tabs are the same on every product. What's in the tabs is different, but the navigation of these 4 is the same. So this page will look familiar no matter what product you're in. The alert history you'll be able to see everything that's occurred with that particular product. Device settings. Again, particular or specific to the Aquanaut Fit is this list. So I can change items like a silence interval. And we'll go into more detail about this in the next webinar, but just the highlights here. On an Aquanaut Fit, probably the most important setting is this self-testing. So I'm able to dictate that that's on or off, and I'm able to dictate how often, however many days I want it to test and at what time. And if I want to change any of those things, I change the setting and then I save it by hitting the save button at the bottom. And then the last tab, going back up here to the tabs, is alert settings. This is that page of alerts. Again, specific to Fit. This would look different if it was an M.P.A or a control panel. And I can turn those things on and off based on how I want to receive those alerts. All right. Go back to my account homepage. I'm going to open up, this is an indoor water alarm, a high water alarm we call M.P.A. That's in an ejector pit in the basement of my house. And the reason I'm pointing this out is to show a little feature that I think is very helpful for people. So this ejector pit takes care of a bathroom that's in the basement. And of course, my kids and their friends use this basement constantly and therefore the bathroom constantly. And I'm pretty sure that if there was a flooding issue, none of them would even notice until it's too late. So instead, what I did is I put in a high water alarm. There's a float in there that will trigger if for any reason the water gets higher than it should. Now I could just leave it with the default settings and my wife and I will get alerts that say input 1 on M.P.A. The problem with that is I don't think my wife would have any idea what input 1 means. So what we've allowed you to be able to do right here is change what a message might look like. So you can see in this case, input 1, I renamed stop using basement bathroom now. Hopefully that's clear, and whoever's in the shower will turn it off before I have a flood in my basement. But the point is you can name the alert to be useful. Also, if you go up above here and see device name, I've named it a useful name. And the location, which is right here, it's not named here, but I can change the location. So if I have other locations to organize my account, I can change what location that device exists in, at least electronically. Okay, what do you see as the most beneficial feature of Z-Control Cloud? Notifications, some of the features, the fact that there's no cost, the two-way remote control type features. Okay. Notifications, of course, as we kind of expected, got the most votes. Two-way communication, then there's a tie for unlimited features and no cost. All right, good, thank you, appreciate that. All right, continuing on. When you connect a Z-Control enabled product with Wi-Fi, you're going to have the ability where it's going to walk you through that. But sometimes it's a little bit more difficult to imagine how the products that are outside that have to use a gateway, how they're physically connected to the router. So we're going to just walk through briefly a couple of ways that can be done. The easiest configuration when you have a panel or some other device that has to be outside, the easiest way to do that is if you have a strong Wi-Fi signal at that location. If you do, then the gateway can go inside the control panel as long as it's a plastic enclosure and be plugged in that way, and there's no wiring to do. It's a much simpler installation. Now the next slide, this is as if your control panel is outside but your router is inside. Either the signal doesn't reach or you have to do a wired connection. Then you're probably going to put the gateway inside the building. And now you have to run a Cat5 cable between the gateway and wherever that device is outside. So if it's a distance, you may have to consider a buried Cat5 cable. You may have to consider that the conduit that you have in place already for electrical can't necessarily be used for the data cable. That's usually not a good idea to put a data cable mixed in with power cables. And then on the inside, you'd be connecting your gateway either physically to the router with a Cat5 cable or with the built-in Wi-Fi in the gateway. So that's the second method. And then the third method, you might not have an internet service provider at all at the location. This may be a remote location, for example. Well, you can still possibly connect the gateway and the product that's behind it to the cloud. You do that by going to a cellular provider that has cellular service in that area. Let's say AT&T. And you go in and you purchase what's called a cellular to Ethernet adapter. That adapter will probably be $100, maybe $200, and you plug that into the right side of the gateway. And now you've given the gateway internet via cellular. Gateway doesn't know the difference. It just knows it has internet, so it starts communicating with the cloud right away. And now your cost is the cost of that adapter and probably a monthly service to AT&T for that adapter. One thing to consider in this type of an installation with a cellular adapter is in certain circumstances you may not have power. In one circumstance you're not going to have power is when you're using the gateway or an APAC alarm to monitor remote dry contacts, auxiliary contacts. So what do we mean by that? If you've got an existing control panel out in the field, not a Z-Control enabled panel, but just an older panel, any panel we've sold in the past 20 or 30 years probably, the vast majority of those have dry contacts. So do our outdoor alarms. Many of those have dry contacts. Our previous generation of charger has dry contacts on the bottom of it. So does our smart pack. A switch, a mechanical float switch, is in essence a dry contact. So any of those things can be monitored by the gateway and the APAC, even if they weren't designed to work with Z-Control. So how do you do that? You just take a 2-conductor wire, connect it to the dry contacts or auxiliary output on the device. So here's the next slide. You can see the inside of a control panel. There's a pair of contacts there labeled dry contact. 2-conductor wire from there. In the case of the gateway, there's 2 screw terminals on the right side. Those are the auxiliary input. You go from end to end, and you are now monitoring the dry contacts in that panel. And if you're using an APAC, same thing. On the bottom, there's 2 sets of inputs, and you can use either one, and you can monitor that control panel or outdoor APAC or charger, whatever the case is. So if somebody asks you, well, I've got these old control panels, can I somehow use Z-Control? The answer is yes. It's not Z-Control enabled, so you don't have all the two-way communication and changing of settings and that kind of thing, but you can at least monitor perhaps the most important thing. For example, on a control panel, a dry contact is typically triggered when the high water float is tripped. So high water float goes off, auxiliary contacts close, gateway is triggered, cloud is notified, cloud sends out text and email to the users. So you've just internet enabled, or let's say you're now able to receive text, email, push notification from a control panel that's been in place for 20 years. Now, in those cases, you're probably going to have to provide power to the gateway. So some of the models come with a little power adapter, as you can see in that picture there. You just need to plug that into an AC receptacle. So to achieve that, to be able to monitor using a gateway or an APAC, these are your part numbers. You've got a 10-4144 that will come with that power adapter, and the 10-4780 does not come with the power adapter. Now you see a Cat5 cable in that picture with the 4780. If you're using it strictly to monitor dry contacts, you won't even use that cable, but it comes with it. So you'll just discard it or use it with something else. On the APAC, there's 3 Z-Control enabled models. One comes with a read sensor, one comes with a mechanical float switch. That's what MFS is. And if you're just using the APAC to monitor another product, you can buy it without a switch to save a little bit of money. That's what the 4683 number is. Okay, so back inside the building, you're connecting the gateway to the router. The gateway has both Wi-Fi and Ethernet built in. So you'd either go through the setup process of the Wi-Fi, which is on FM 2901. There's a quick start guide there, which is basically walking through connecting to the gateway and telling the gateway how to connect to the local router and giving it its password. Connecting it via Ethernet is the easiest thing to do because you simply plug in a Cat5 cable at each end and the gateway will immediately start communicating with the cloud. So to review, at zcontrolcloud.com, that page is set up to answer some general questions, provide a general description of the platform, provide some product info, there's some FAQs, and there's even connection instructions both for Wi-Fi on the built-in Wi-Fi products and then also the Wi-Fi that's on the gateway. The process is slightly different between the two. So there's a set of instructions for each of those on the zcontrolcloud.com site. We are at the end of our presentation. Again, if you have questions to send to us after the presentation that you think of, just use that webinars@zoeller.com. We will get back to you. We're going to hang on the line just for a little bit to take any questions you guys might have in regard to Zoeller's Z-Control Cloud and the information we presented today. Go ahead and go on our training tab on the Zoeller Pump Company website and sign up for the second webinar, which will be a lot more details, a lot more troubleshooting, and more specific to connecting devices and managing your cloud account. This is probably one of the most common questions. So you've got this whole thing set up. You've got your cloud and your devices are in the house and they're in your account and you're monitoring them, you're getting alerts. But what if the power goes out to your house and therefore your router power goes out? Now what? What happens? So the way we explain that, there's a couple of things to think about. On most of our products, I'll take the APAC and the Fit, for example. Those have battery backup, so they're going to stay alive from the standpoint of being able to communicate. What might not stay alive is the router in somebody's house if they lose power. Our first recommendation would be to have them look into buying a small battery backup like a UPS. You can go to a retailer and you can literally buy for $30 a UPS that will power a router for a couple days. I think that's a good use of $30. That's number one. But let's say they didn't do that and power does go out and the router goes down. So worst case scenario, there's just no more communication. What's going to happen, remember we talked about the heartbeat. Every one of our devices out there is checking in with our cloud every 30 seconds and updating the cloud. When our cloud doesn't see communication, doesn't see that heartbeat for 10 minutes, notifications to all users, all recipients go out. So whatever happened to knock out communication, including a power outage, in 10 minutes, they will get a notification saying that their device has lost communication. So that's kind of the fail-safe. So we are going to wrap up this webinar. Thank you very much for joining us today. We hope you learned about Z-Control, and if you have any further questions, just let us know. We're happy to answer them. Thanks again.